On my mother's side, her parents lived in Fort Worth, and so we only got to visit them occasionally, no more than twice a year. We would always be there at Christmas time. That was the biggest occasion. And they always had a Christmas open house, coffee, tea, whatever you'd like to call it, where they would have friends and neighbors drop in the Christmas Eve night. And my grandmother would get out her very best silver and china and polish it all up and serve the neighbors as they came through the house.
Waltz together this Christmas, waltz round the Christmas tree with your head on.
And of course, all of us little children were all dressed up, you know, in our finest too. And the neighbors would come by and pat us on the head, you know, like, wow, you've really grown, which is the standard comment, you know, when you haven't seen somebody in a year. And we would just stand around, you know, looking as cute as we could. But the grown-ups visited. They also had a real good time. Piles of presents under the Christmas tree. And my mother had 3 sisters, and they and their families always came too. So we had lots of cousins to play with and lots of presents to open. It was a great time.
Let's waltz together.
My mother's dad was the first one to pass away. He died in 1956 when I was only 14 years old. And that was the first time that I lost one of my grandparents. And my grandmother, his wife, she lived to be almost 93 years old. So I had her for a lot longer time.
And here in my heart you will stay while I pray. My prayer is to linger with you at the end of the day, in a dream that's divine. My prayer is a rapture in blue.
My father's parents, which were Spencer and Hannah Tittle Vantrease, they married in 1899, and this photograph is on their wedding day, so it's quite old, and this used to hang in our house all the years when I was growing up. My grandparents on my father's side were the ones that were probably closer to me because they lived in Deer Park. They lived on West 2nd Street, and we lived on East 6th Street, so they were close enough that I could even occasionally walk to their house. But they were also the grandparents that we always went to Sunday dinner at their house. After church, she always fried up a big mess of fried chicken and fresh vegetables, and so we would go to their house and have Sunday dinner or Sunday lunch there. And their names, actually their real names were Spencer was his name, and her name was Martha Ann Hannah Tittle Vantrease. And she actually had 3 names in addition, of course, to her maiden name of Tittle. But everyone around us called her Hannah, because that was just sort of a nickname that everybody had given her. But my grandfather, all of us kids called Popeye. And I don't know why, it's like the cartoon character Popeye, and I have no idea why we called him that, but that was just the name we gave him. And my grandmother, we called Granny Grunt, which was kind of an odd name. I never heard of anybody call that, but that was what we called her, and nobody ever knew how that little custom originated or started, but that was their names. I would go down and visit with them, sometimes sit around in their little living parlor there and watch TV with them or read the newspaper and just kind of visit with them. They were just kind of fun to hang out with, which was kind of neat.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, but there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Nobody in Deer Park had a swimming pool in the back of their house. Nobody. So we all went to the high school swimming pool in those days. And every time I had one of my famous dance parties, that was part of it. We went swimming before the party started. That was the first part of it. And we would all go swimming, then come back to the house and usually have a cookout, hot dogs or hamburgers, and then put the record player, set it up, and start playing our 45 records and dancing.
Well, all I want is a party doll. Come along with me.
I was really big into summer parties, and especially when I was about 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, things like that. We were just beginning to, you know, explore dancing with the opposite sex, and it was a really big thing, and kind of like, sort of like dating, you know, kind of like the big boys did. I got on a bus and rode for 3 days and 3 nights solid.
Traveling man made a lot of stops.
By myself. I went to spend a couple of months with my aunt and uncle who were in North Carolina. He was in the Marine Corps and he was stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina.
Pretty senorita waiting for me down in old Mexico. And if you're ever in Alaska, stop and see my cute little Eskimo. Oh, my sweet Fraulein down in Berlin.
And of course, you know, I always used any excuse to have a party, so I threw myself a going away party, you know. Then after I was there a couple of months, I returned, and guess what? I had a coming home party for myself.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
There was a dance that came out that we referred to as the bop. B-O-P. It had some strange gyrations that you can see, and I'm not even sure how I learned how to do it except by watching somebody else, but the bop was a really big thing. Bill Haley in the Comets was a real big one at that time, and I remember we danced to that, and then of course when Elvis came along, we danced to all the Elvis tunes too.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you was high class. Well, that was just...
But dancing was really a lot of my growing up experiences. Our house in Deer Park was a little bit larger than the norm, and some people mistook that for us having more money than most people, but it just so happened my dad was a home builder, and so he built this house over a period of, it was a good while, a year probably. He built our house on 6th Street in Deer Park, and it was about 2,500 square feet. My mom always had flower beds around the house. She grew love plants and grew roses especially. She loved to have roses in the house, fresh cut roses. She would always bring into the house whenever they were in bloom. And of course I was me and my brother were the yard mowers. We were the one that did all the yard mowing and maintenance and things like that at the house. But our street was mostly small houses, and therefore we appeared that we had, you know, because we had a larger house, it kind of stood out from the rest of the houses on the street. I stepped on the foot of this fella, he was quite a bit larger than me and kind of a bully type. But anyway, he pushed me, and of course I had to bow my back at it, get in his face, and he hauled off and hit me right in the mouth and cut my lip and had blood all over me, so ticked me off, and I challenged him to a fight after school, and which then I got the best of him after school, but in the process I broke my hand, and so my friend Mike and I were just goofing around here and pretending that we were fighting, just making fun of my broken hand. But that was my first and only fight in school ever. We lived in Houston, of course, about 50 miles from the coastline there at Galveston, and my dad loved to go fishing, so he wanted to be in, you know, striking distance, so to speak, of the coast. And occasionally he would convince my mother to go fishing. She did not like it at all, but she went once or twice, I think, just to placate him. But he would always, or generally, drag me and my brother along because I enjoyed it. We both enjoyed it. But he was an avid fisherman. He won a couple of fishing contests. I remember he caught some really large fish for that time, and he was into that. He particularly liked go fishing for speckled trout and redfish. That was the two things he liked. And he didn't particularly like to eat fish, though. He just liked to catch them. It was just the thrill of the catch, I guess. He was not a hunter. He never owned a gun. And when I was growing up, all he ever really wanted to do was fish. That was his hobby. That was his pastime. And that's what he wanted to do. And sometimes he would come home with hundreds of fish, and sometimes he would come home with nothing. But he always went back, always had a good time. That's what he wanted to do. In the 9th grade, we got our letter sweaters, which were gray sweaters with these red and white DPs sewn onto them. And we were really impressed with ourselves with those sweaters. We thought we had made the big time. And the next step was up to the high school level, and then after that, who knows where we might go.
Lollipop, lollipop, oh, lolly, lolly, lolly,
I think I beat George by like 4 votes to win the election. And it didn't bother him. He was really a good-natured guy. And so anyway, he came over to the house shortly, about a week later. I still had all these posters around, so Mother wanted me she wanted to film them. And so we had this little thing where, George was pretending to be upset about me having all these posters after he had lost the election. So we had a lot of fun out of it. George was a great guy, and he didn't have a bitter bone in his body.
On a day.
My dad, of course, was a big fisherman, and he loved to fish, but he didn't really like the water per se. He never went swimming, hardly ever. It was very rare. And a couple of scenes here you'll see he and my mom were at the beach in Galveston, and they went in the water swimming. I can't tell you, other than this one time, I do not know of another occasion where they both actually went into the water, and I hardly remember my mother and my dad even having a bathing suit, because it just wasn't something they did. But this was probably some special occasion. I don't remember exactly what it was, but kids nowadays would go to Six Flags. Well, back in those days, Galveston was a big deal to go down there and play in the surf. After I got into high school and I was playing sports a lot, I was playing football and basketball primarily. And one year I broke my ankle, or fractured it, actually is what I did to it. And it was kind of a silly thing. I was on the ground and somebody fell on my foot and broke it. So anyway, I had to wear a cast, and I was in a cast for about, I don't know, it was only 3 or 4 weeks as I recall. It was the homecoming football game while I was on my crutches. So here I'm going to the game, but I had no date that evening, so I asked my mother to go with me. And so I bought the traditional maroon and gold Deer Park corsage from the local florist.
We're going on a sleigh ride, all together, all together, all together, let's go get it. Just hear those sleigh bells.
In 1960, the year that we had a snow, I think this is in February, I believe, February or March of 1960, it came a really big snow, and it wasn't just a light dusting. As you can see by the video, the snow was probably 3 or 4 inches deep on the ground, and it stuck for quite a while too, and that was really a phenomenon. I had really never seen snow like that before, so it was really interesting to me to see it snow, and I don't think it's ever snowed like that again in Deer Park.